So today is Vav Tammuz. Today is the yahrzeit of a friend, an acquaintance, someone I knew. His name was Dr. Arthur Reinhard, whose Hebrew name is Avram Eliezer ben David. It's yahrzeit. He never married, he left no children, and he was a supporter of the Lubavitch institutions, and I knew him, and I try to keep his yahrzeit, so I'm dedicating the Shir, our learning, L'Toivas L'Ilu Nishmasei, Avram Eliezer ben David. May have a lichtig in Gan Eden. He was a doctor at Kingsbrook, which is Crown Heights. You know, you go straight down there, Albany or Kingston, you get to a hospital called Kingsbrook Medical Center, and he was there. He was the doctor there for many, many years. And I made a connection with him, a pretty solid connection, and invited him to my house for Pesach. You know, if he, whatever Hashem took him, the way he went. I told you once, I don't think it was in a very kosher way. That I think it was a setup somehow by family relatives who wanted his money. I mean, but again, I have no proof to that, so we're just going to leave it for now. But the bottom line is that his neshama returned in the late 60s, 67, 68, 69, something like that, 66. And we'll keep his neshama. I don't keep his yahrzeit. I don't know where he's buried, but he's buried. I was told he had a Yiddish burial. And we did a lot of good from his, money, his parents' money. That, he didn't spend much on himself, and he lived. I was in his house, and he lived where Mordechai ben David lives over there. It's called what's it called? By the water. What? Seagate. He lives in Seagate. As a boy, I never heard of Seagate. I never was at Seagate. But after I met him, I went out there and was in his house. And, you could see he's living as a single and whatever. But he was a good Yid. He had a good neshama. And he did good things. So I had a Sefer Torah written for his parents while he was alive. And that Torah now is in my son-in-law's shul in Tel Aviv. So they read the Torah this weekend, I think, and yesterday, and they read from it several other times. So there is a Torah as a memorial for him. But getting back to the text that we're learning here, and we have to learn a very important footnote in a moment. But before that, Yoini asked a good question, and Baruch Hashem, Yoini, we did find an answer. And the question that Yoini asked is that in this Maimon, this Kuntres, the Rebbe in chapter 8, the Rebbe says here that Chasidus gives a new chayas, a new life force and energy in all other parts of Torah, which is Pshat, but Emesh through Sod. And he gives, as an example, on page 51, he says all the avodas of Yom Kippurim, a Kohen Gadol needs to do them, and they receive, and when Yom Kippur comes out on Shabbos, and you normally bring the carbon musaf on Shabbos, right? That's why we do musaf on Shabbos. So the Yom Kippur tefillas elevate the musaf tefillas. So in other words, the musaf tefillah of Yom Kippur qualitatively is a different musaf. This is what he said. So Yomi asked the question, why does he choose Musaf? Why doesn't he choose Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year. And he made another good point that the Malchiyos, the Chronos, the Shofres are so prominent. In other words, as far as Musaf is concerned, in our liturgy, which stands out more? The Musaf of Yom Kippur or the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah? I mean that you could argue, because remember, during Musaf of Yom Kippur, you have the Avodah. But that's already the Avodah part of Musaf. The technical Musaf of Yom Kippur compared to the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah, it would seem and feels, whether it is or not, but it's a Chreines, a Shofres, a Malchiyos. His question was, why not highlight that? And the answer is, I should have got it, but I wasn't thinking. I just heard the question, I put it off. But in thinking about it, discussing it with a friend, the answer is, what makes Yom Kippur special? Ne'ilah, right? Yom Kippur would not be anything other than a regular Yom Tov if not for Ne'ilah, right? Because there are other holidays in which we have the Yom Tovim. We'll have all the four tefillas and the special reading and all that. What makes Yom Kippur different? The fifth tefillah, Ne'ilah. What does Ne'ilah correspond to? We learned to Yechida, to the fifth aspect of the neshama that's most unique, oneness, Yechida. No. So that issue, Yaini, only exists on Yom Kippur. In other words, what I failed to explain is, when the Rebbe says here, when he quotes the Mishnah, that the Musaf of Yom Kippur becomes special because of Yom Kippur. What is Yom Kippur? Ne'ilah. So if you said that about Rosh Hashanah, it's not true. Rosh Hashanah, Yaini, is not 5 tefillahs, it's only 4. So in other words, Rosh Hashanah does not yet express Yechida. And that's the point that he's trying to make here, that Chasidus is Yechida. So you have Pshat, Remesh, Drusoid, corresponding to the 4 tefillos, the 4 prayers of every holiday. Only when you have Yechida, when you have Chasidus, then, which is analogous to Yechida, then the entire other tefillas become qualitatively different. Is that clear? Yes, Moshe.
Yeah, just a quick question. Rabbi Dublin, what would you say? You say Shat Remes Drusha Sod. Which is which? Like which tefillah is? I don't know. I don't know this.
Right.
Which?
I don't know that now. I believe it's brought in Kabbalah, but I didn't research it, so I'm not going to give you a Baba Maisa. And it's not relevant really to the text, which is which. But it's a good question to put on hold and to get back to. And believe that if I get a chance, I'll try to. I don't have Sforim here, but I hope I'll get to that sometime. But you are thinking. That's what's important. No, I'm serious. That means you're following. Avram, you want to say something?
I just want to answer his question.
Yes.
Does this other form, Musa, correspond to the other 4 parts of the soul?
Yeah. So again, that too. If you're going to ask me which part corresponds to what, I want to look at that. I want to give you the right answer. It's not just pick and choose. It's pick and choose. My word is this. It doesn't work that way. I just for a second, you understand, especially when it comes to Kabbalah, and this is a mistake. This whole world of gematria, it's become such a joke. In other words, if you could show me a correlation between Ma'ariv of Yom Kippur and the level of Nefesh, then we could talk business. You understand? But you got to show me the connection. I believe I could figure it out. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not thinking that way. I want to get to the footnote. So, but the question that you're asking of Ram along the line of what Moshe asked is good, and let me get to it hopefully sometime later. Very good. Okay. So here there's footnote 71. I need you to turn there, and here we learned in the text on page 48 in the English. Take a look at the English side, the last paragraph of the text on page 48. It says here that in addition to the explanations which Chassidus gives to various subjects within all 4 parts of Torah, which negates the common misconception that Chassidus arose in order to explain only the esoteric part of Torah. Now, when the Rebbe writes these words, he says the misconception, and I'm telling you, boy, is he right, because it's a big misconception. Ask average man on the street. Yaini, walk down Rodney Avenue, Williamsburg, 13th Avenue, Borough Park, whatever streets in Muncie, and Yerushalayim, blah, 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 blah. What is Chassidus? The average person who's a Chassid is going to tell you it's an explanation of Kabbalah. And what the Rebbe says here is that it's not an explanation of Kabbalah. Yes, when you learn Chassidus and it uses some Kabbalistic language and ideas, it automatically, through the understanding of Chassidus, those ideas become clear. That's true. But not that Chassidus is an explanation of Kabbalah. And Velvel, what's the logical argument for that position? Because if Chassidus is just an explanation of Kabbalah, then it's not a fifth level. Then it's not 5, it's only 4. And so big deal. So I'll say it's 4, it's not 5. Why must it be 5? Because you decided? Because I decided? Because the Rebbe decided? No. And this is where it touches your question, Avraham. Because there are 5 levels of neshama. Isha, put your camera down. I like to see your face. Since there are 5 levels of neshama, nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida, and that's brought in Kabbalah. So it behooves us to say what aspect of my neshama, of my being, is yechida. So, and therefore, it also behooves us to say what aspect of Torah is yechida. What is the yechida within Torah? And what is the yechida within man? So this kind of brings us to understand that there is something that's greater than the 4, which is yechida, the oneness, the uniqueness, the ne'ilah. You could say it this way, the ne'ilah within the soul, the ne'ilah within the world, throughout the year, and that's yechida. So if that's the case, Chassidus is not Kabbalah. Kabbalah is 1 out of 4, and yechida is 5. So yechida is unique. It has just like Kabbalah is unique that it's sod, pshat, remesh, drush, sod. So too, yechida has its uniqueness, but it's 5. It's 5. We normally have 4. What do you mean it's 5? And this is the Rebbe's thesis in this essay, that Chassidus is 5, is yechida. And that Chassidus illuminates every other aspect of Torah, as you will see later in the Kuntras, as we continue learning. We don't yet have a full explanation. But I want to go to number 71. So he quotes here the Rebbe Rashab in Torah Shalom, page 172. The world considers Chassidus to be an explanation of Kabbalah. That is a mistake. Remember, this is now from the Rashab. The statement concludes, Kabbalah is, next page 50, is an explanation of Chassidus. Wow! The Rashab turns it around and he says, no, you think Chassidus is an explanation to Kabbalah, you have it wrong. Kabbalah is an explanation to Chassidus. To explain Chassidus, to explain. In other words, let's explain the Rashab's words. Chassidus is the comprehension of divinity. Remember? You want a definition for Chassidus? Here it is. It's the comprehension of divinity. Right? There is divinity. We'll call that in Hebrew, Chevra Elokus. Get used to that word. Elokus is divinity. We want to understand that divinity. That's called the comprehension of divinity. Chassidus gives us the tools to comprehend divinity. Yechida is in the feminine form. It receives from Yechida. Okay, we're going to skip this bracket. Let's go to the C, Eitz Chayim. The small spark of God clothes itself in the small spark of man and is called Yechida. Chassidus, okay, we'll go ahead. Chassidus achieves this comprehension of God by using analogies, parallels, and explanations. Kabbalah, though, explains, this is what I told you was the pipelines, the location of God in terms of the body of the king and the sphirot, etc. So Kabbalah says, Yonis, Kabbalah says, the right hand is chesed, the left hand is gvura, etc. And we labeled the parts. If you've seen, secular writers and others, they put a diagram of a human being, and they label the human being by that's Kabbalah. It's coming out from Kabbalah. It should also be noted that the revelations of Keser, analogous to darkness, why is Keser darkness, Chevra? Something called Keser, right? The crown above. Because it's so great and so powerful that to us it's dark. We don't understand it, so we call it darkness. Keser isn't Chokhmah. Okay, as discussed in chapter 2. Chasidus is the effusion of new radiance from, okay, this is getting a little heavy, we're going to skip this, it's not relevant right now, hold on. Go to the next paragraph, the bottom of 50. There are two major ideas discussed here. The manner in which Kabbalah is an explanation of Chasidus and not vice versa. And number two, the fact that Kabbalah is only an explanation, a reduced reflection, and does not capture the essence of Chasidus. So in other words, like this. One aspect is that Kabbalah explains Chasidus. The other one is that Kabbalah only explains a glimpse of Chasidus, not all of Chasidus. In the first part, the Rebbe distinguishes between the nature and methods of comprehending God of Chasidus and Kabbalah. And that is, Kabbalah is a descriptive anatomy, so to speak, of the body of the king. That is, the various manifestations of divinity. It is interested in indexing, I like that, cataloging, even better, and locating these divine revelations, assigning them places and names. So Isser, when you make a bracha on wine Friday night, you make Kiddush, that's one location. And if you want to know the location, you have to know what Shem Hashems are being said in the bracha. And I told you once I saw someone do this as he held the cup, and he made Kiddush very slowly. And someone who I know well, and I asked him, like, what took you so long to make Kiddush? And he said he was having in mind the Yichud, the Yichudim, that the Arizal writes of the Shem Hashem in that particular bracha. Yes, Yonason.
Also, there is an idea that the bow, the seventh bow, represents the seventh sphere. For example, Chesed is Seichel, and Stay is Gula. So when you came off came, with the Stay ready, you have to have your mind. Stay ready is Bina. Then you have to have in mind that the Bina, that the infinite light of Hashem is going into Bina, which is coming out in that water. So each of the spheres has got a corresponding to the...
Right.
Each bag.
Right. So Yonason gave us an example, a real life example of the kavanas that you need to have for a particular bracha at a particular time. So that's called the location, the indexing, as he says here, and the cataloging. Hence, let's go back to the footnote. Hence, Kabbalah is concerned with the technical identities and relations between the Sfirot, the worlds, Seder Ishtalshalut, etc. That's Kabbalah. I want you to make a note either on here or on paper or on the Sefer, that if you ever are looking to explain to someone the difference between Chasidus and Kabbalah, refer to this, but study it thoroughly and get it. But this is one of the places that I always think of a place where you could see an explanation to the difference, because it's so relevant to people when they say, oh, Chasidus is Kabbalah, Kabbalah is Chasidus, it's all in one. Okay. Chasidus, however, is concerned with the direct perception of divinity, not through analogies, underlying all these terms, forms, and locations. You hear that? Chasidus is not concerned, Avram, with the locations, the indexing, the gematrias, and all of that. Chasidus is concerned about divinity, direct God. The God that underlies all the indexing and all the gematrias. That's what Chasidus is concerned about. Let's go further. It will thus employ all manner of explanations, example, parallels, including Kabbalah, in order to reveal the essence of divinity expressed in all levels. That is, Kabbalah is the technical explanation of these forms and terms in themselves, while Chasidus only uses and is interested in these forms as a means for perceiving divinity. That's a beautiful word. Chasidus is not interested in the analogies and forms and cataloging and indexing and gematrias for its own sake. It uses it to understand divinity, God himself. In other words, Moshe, if someone says, you know what God is? Let's see what Yonason said before. With the Tzera and the Segel, one is Bina and all that, right? When is that important? And why is that? Is because there's a divinity behind it. Otherwise, who cares? Who cares? In other words, so you need to relate to the divinity. However, the divinity takes a form of expression. Tzera, Segel, Chochmah, Bina, Keser. But if you don't have the divinity behind it, it's a meaningless experience. So you could find an individual that's very knowledgeable in the Yehudi and everything else, and guess what? And has nothing to do with divinity. It's an exercise, it's a mind exercise. There are people that like mathematics, there are people that like science, there are people that like, other fields of study, and this falls into it. But where is the divinity, the godliness? Chasidus deals with the godliness. And it's said, we say in one word, Chasidus deals with godliness too. That's a whole study of who is God, what is God not, how do I fit into the picture, how does the world fit? Yes, Avram, you want to say something? No? Okay. Continue. Well, so, as discussed earlier, analogy. Our doctor is still here? No, he went off, but let's see, here's an analogy. A physician uses biology, chemistry, anatomy, only to gain comprehension of the body's essential life force in order that he may be able to, bottom of 51, heal. He is not interested in anatomy in and for its own sake, but only insofar as it helps him further understand the nature of the body's existence. Similarly, Kabbalah is an anatomy, so to speak, while Chasidus is concerned with the essential comprehension of God's being and existence. The Rebbe then proceeds to analyze the nature of Kabbalah as a revelation of Chasidus. Another analogy. The anatomy textbook helps the physician understand the body. Nevertheless, the text is only a schematized, secondary reflection of the body, and not, of course, the essence of the body's life force itself. Furthermore, the full force and essence of the physician's understanding of the human body is demonstrated not in his particular knowledge of anatomy, but in the practical effects of the healing. Similarly, Kabbalah, while it is a revelation, in quotes, an explanation of Chasidus, is merely an explanation and not the essence of Chasidus itself. The essence of Chasidus is captured only in action and practical deed. This thing here, Chevra, is powerful, and it's so true. Well, one second. I was waiting for your hand. 1 second. You might be wondering, what is the Rebbe saying here? What, Kabbalah is not, what a person who's a serious Baal Mekubal learns Kabbalah is not looking to do it practical? What is the Kabbalah part of his practicality? Yonason said it before. Have a mind the tzerei and the segel. That's not practical. That is practical, but it's not practical putting on tefillin, putting on mezuzah on. Can you say the bracha without having in mind if it's a tzerei or a segel? If I read the bracha correctly with a segel or a right, I pronounce it correctly, Yoyi. And I have no idea, like most people don't, and they're not interested, they don't know, they don't care. Say, Rabbina, Chachma, leave me alone. Have I done the mitzvah? Absolutely. Nothing is missing, not an iota. So, to say that knowing the segel and the tzerei and this name of God and this pronunciation is practical, it's not. It's practical in its own sense, but not compared to the mitzvah, to the bottom line. So Kabbalah, what was the English word? Esoteric, mystical. The meaning of which, the connotation, it's not practical. Chassidus, it's just the opposite. Just the opposite. You can learn and learn and learn. And if you don't do, you're not Hasidic. You're not a Chosid. Because Chassidus is about divine, and divine is Maisa. That's the Nakuda. Divinity is Maisa. What do we learn in the Svarim HaKadoshim? North Chilosim B'Seifim. The edge is wedged in the beginning, and the beginning is wedged in the end. What's the beginning? Machshava, thought. What's the end? Action, Maisa. Says in the Svarim, no, it's Chilosim B'Seifim. They're wedged in each other. What does that mean? That means if you strip and remove the sof from the beginning, and the beginning from the sof, you're not plugged in. You're not plugged in divinity. You're plugged into somewhere else. Avram, what did you want to say? No, Issa, sorry.
Yeah, I was given the definition many years ago like this. Chassidus is a verb. Chassidus is a verb. And a chassid is one who does chesed with man and with his maker.
That's from Tanya chapter 10, and that's very nice, but and it doesn't contradict what we're learning here.
No, not a contradiction at all. The essence of Chassidus is captured only in action, practical deed. That was the message of Chassidus is a verb, meaning it's action.
I got it.
It's a verb.
Very good. I hear you.
No contradiction at all.
Right. I understand.
As opposed to again, now.
Right.
It's a scripture.
Right.
So Kabbala would be the noun, and Chasidus would be the verb.
Right. What time is it, Chevron? What's the time, man?
3:16.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I took the time, there's more, but I took the time to learn this section of the footnote because it's very, very valuable. And the way to learn this footnote is skip over the Kabbalah parts, just try to get the more rational part so that you could become clear to you in your mind. Because if you read every single line with every it's gonna throw you off because he interjects it. But if you stay away from the kesser and this and that, I'm not saying you shouldn't learn it, but to understand the difference between Chassidus and Kabbalah of each, this is I feel a good English essay kind of to explain. I mean, do you agree? I mean, what do you think, Chevron, Moshe, and others, Avram, Velvel? Any comments? Or some water, please. Yeah.
I think it's very good. I think it's very good. I know I've had many experiences. People speaking with people, and most people are not aware of the difference between Chassidus and Kabbalah. It's exactly
Right.
what's
It's
being
an explanation that Chassidus is not an explanation of Kabbalah, but it flips on its head so much of what the comment understands.
I know, and I still have to think about that part. I didn't spend a lot of time on that. What does it mean, Kabbalah is an explanation of Chassidus? So, I think what it means is, because that's a very powerful statement, what does it mean? It means that Chassidus is about divinity, which is Maaseh. Kabbalah comes to give you the pipelines of that action. So when it says Kabbalah is an explanation of Chassidus, in other words, here's my problem, sir, with hearing this. Kabbalah is esoteric, so what do you mean it's an explanation of Chassidus? It's mysticism. It's mystical. So what do you mean it's an explanation? It's no explanation of Chassidus. It makes it more aloof. It makes it more removed. That's when I read that. That's what threw me for a loop. And I think the answer is, what it means is that since Chassidus is about, like you said, the verb, the action, Kabbalah tells you, it explains to you where to place that action. In this sphere, and that sphere, on the right, in the left ventricle, in the back, in the front, in the head. I think that's what he means by that. That's what he means, that Kabbalah is an explanation of Chassidus. Chevra will continue tomorrow, and may the neshama of Avram Eliezer B'Dova have an aliyah, and everyone else only simchas, so everyone have good things, and it's a good month. Yes, Yoyi, you want to say something?
I just wanted
Yes.
to thank you.
Thank you. Zai gesund, everyone. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.